Can I ask you about God? Because I think that's where a lot of people are, where they're going to, because there's like a spiritual revolution happening. People are understanding that there's a control mechanism that hasn't been talked about before, that what's being promoted is evil. And I think people are naturally gravitating towards something spiritual. What's your opinion on God?
Yeah, so here's the thing. What's happening is that we have to be very careful with this. There's always been this dialectic being created between science and religion, right? Like science is over here and religion's here, and they both can't connect. My view is system science brings it together. Let me explain what I mean by this, okay? So let me repeat what again for the 7-second piece here. The science and religion have always been kept apart. So whenever science came, people thought science was in opposition to religion. And whenever religion came, the scientists said they had to be atheists, right? And this has been the dialectic for over the last 400 years. But system science actually solves this dialectic. There is no contradiction. You see, when Isaac Newton, go back 400 years ago, right? When he discovered the laws of motion, what did he actually discover? He figured out a bunch of equations I could draw up on a whiteboard or a blackboard, and he could predict the motion of the planets, right? He could predict exactly where the sun will be tomorrow, where the earth will be tomorrow, etc., right? Mathematically, still today. And he could also tell you where the sun was 2,000 years ago, or the earth was. Now, when Isaac Newton's scientific equations came out, what happened? The religious people actually got more religious. Why? Because they said, holy shit, what Newton is saying is the world is predestined, because I can predict the motion of all these objects. If that's true, that means we can predict the motion of me, you, everything. Like the world is a mechanistic universe. So right when Newton discovered this, everyone thought the world was like a clock. You could predict everything. You could predict what Sneako would do tomorrow, what Dr. Shiva will do tomorrow, right? Everything must be predestined. Now that goes against religion, because religion says there's a God, right? We believe in God. We believe in miracles, right? All that kind of stuff. So the day Isaac Newton figured out the laws of motion, religion came up against him.
It's like a balance.
Yes, but the cool thing is when the discoveries in system science took place in the 1900s, by the 1950s, what was actually discovered, this is quite, I wish we had more time, but what was discovered was that the universe is actually, in a wildly beautiful way, completely undeterministic, which is what the religious people like to know, right? Like it's miracles can happen. Now, under certain conditions, we create universes where we can predict perfect motions. So what Newton discovered is not the general case. It's only under certain conditions. So that means order comes out of chaos. Now, let me explain what that means. This is where you blend religion and science. That means you raising your consciousness, your spiritual consciousness, Nico, you could change the world. That's what that means, mechanistically. So system science converges science and religion. There is no contradiction, because what is fundamentally religion saying? It's talking about, in my view, the divinity of all life, right? That every essence of human existence is connected to the divine. And when you connect with that, you become a co-creator with God. That's what it means, right? To me, that's all the great religions talked about, connecting with God. That's what it was. And every religion had some process you went through to connect with God. So in the Christian religion, you go through some type of baptism. In the Hindu religion, you go through a different process. But ultimately,
I don't know what y'all do.
Huh?
Are you Hindu?
Hinduism is a very disorganized religion, okay?
Like they have cows, and I've seen some weird things. Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, well, Hinduism fundamentally believes that God exists in every aspect of nature, in a rock, a stone, a cow, everything, okay? And it ultimately believes, in many ways, ancient Hinduism and ancient Christianity and ancient Islam all come together, okay? Because the concept is, so in Hinduism, we believe Christ is a avatar of God. We believe Muhammad is an avatar of God, okay? So Hinduism actually believes that during different times in the world, when there's awful shit, God sends one of his messengers at different points, and that's prophets. So in my grandmother's house, when I grew up in the village, you had pictures of Christ, Muhammad, everyone, okay? Core Hinduism reveres all these great people. In fact, core Hinduism says follow any religion. They all lead you back to God. But that's in that sense. But anyway, but what I'm saying is my experiences, having meditated, prayed, I've had my own spiritual experiences. I know that this physical world is not it, that there's something beyond the material world. And you can experience that, I believe, in this life. But I'm not going to try to impose my experience on anyone else. It's a very deeply personal journey.
It's a personal, yeah, I agree.
It's very personal. It's one-on-one. That journey reveals to me that one individual raising their consciousness can change the world. And what do I mean by raising their consciousness? Understanding the principles of God, nature, whatever you want to call it. And to me, those principles of truth, freedom, health, movement, these processes. Now, the ancient Indians called it Vata, Pitta, Kapha. You can think about it as a holy trinity. These principles show up everywhere, but they're not separate from science. That is what I uncovered, Sneako. I have literally found the bridge between East and West, science and tradition, ancient and modern. And once people understand that we don't have to have these contradictions, but people are given a grounding on, you can use these principles to understand your body as a system, everything around you as a system, and it's very powerful. So it should be I've taught this to doctors, all different religions, religious people, everyone. It's a foundational knowledge that transcends religion. It transcends space and time. So once people understand that, they can use it in many ways, but you raise people's consciousness. I think the pursuit of God is ultimately raising consciousness to connect with that has always been. We need to build a bottoms-up movement. Go to shivaforpresident.com and volunteer.